I stood at my father's graveside wearing the only black dress I owned, mud clinging to the hem from the wet earth. The service had just ended when I heard expensive tires crunching on gravel. Grant's white SUV pulled up, shining like a diamond in a coal mine. He stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. My sister Molly stayed in the passenger seat, checking her phone. Grant didn't offer condolences or even a sympathetic look. Instead, he walked straight toward me and slapped a damp envelope against my chest. "Elena, you need to pack up the old man's stuff and get out by Friday," he said coldly. "I sold the farm this morning. Got $1 million for it. The buyers want you gone immediately." My mouth went dry. I looked down at the eviction notice in my shaking hands, then back at the fresh grave where my father had just been laid to rest. Grant smirked like a man who'd just won the lottery. "You're officially a squatter now," he added before walking away. I didn't cry. I just felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Before we continue, I would like to know where you're watching from in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button and share this video, as this will help this video to travel far so others can learn also. My name is Elena Martinez, and for the last 3 years, I'd been the daughter who stayed. When Dad got sick with dementia, I left my marketing job in the city and moved back to the farm. I became his full-time caretaker while Grant and Molly were too busy with their lives to visit. I fed him when he forgot how to use a fork. I read him stories when his mind wandered to places I couldn't follow. I held his hand through the long, terrifying nights when he didn't recognize me. Grant visited exactly twice in 3 years. Both times, he spent more time in Dad's office going through papers than actually talking to his father-in-law. Molly called once a month, always with an excuse about work or vacation plans. They promised they'd come soon, but soon never arrived. Now I understood why Grant had been so interested in Dad's filing cabinets. While I was caring for a dying man, my brother-in-law was plotting how to steal his legacy. The farm wasn't just land to me. It was where I learned to ride a bike, where Mom was buried, where Dad taught me that hard work and honesty mattered more than money. Dad bought this farm in 1985 with money he'd saved from working double shifts at the factory. Back then, it was just 40 acres of stubborn soil and a falling-apart house. He built everything with his own hands: the barn, the fences, the irrigation system. Mom planted the apple trees that still bloomed every spring. They raised me and Molly here, teaching us the value of land and legacy. Molly hated it. She complained about the smell of animals and the dirt under her fingernails. The moment she turned 18, she moved to the city and married Grant, a finance guy who wore cologne that cost more than our monthly electric bill. Grant visited the farm exactly once before they got married. He looked around with disgust, called it a money pit, and told Dad he should cut his losses and sell. Dad just smiled and said some things weren't for sale. I was different. I loved the sunrise over the east field, the sound of rain on the barn roof, the feeling of soil between my fingers. This place was my home, my history, my heart. And Grant had just stolen it all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and searched the county property records. The transfer was there, filed just 2 weeks ago. The seller was listed as Howard Martinez, represented by Grant Sullivan, power of attorney. My blood ran cold. I clicked through to the POA document. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be Dad's, but it looked wrong. The letters were shaky and uneven, nothing like Dad's usually steady handwriting. I grabbed the box where I kept Dad's medical records and pulled out paperwork from 4 months ago, the same time this POA was supposedly signed. The doctor's notes were clear: patient unable to hold pen or pencil. Fine motor control severely diminished. Requires assistance with all writing tasks. Grant had forged it. He'd either traced Dad's signature or forced Dad's failing hand to scribble something that looked close enough. While I was at the pharmacy picking up Dad's medications, Grant was in the office committing fraud. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. Then I emailed them again to 3 different addresses. This was evidence, and I wasn't going to let it disappear. 2 days after the funeral, Molly called. "Grant wants to take you to dinner," she said sweetly. "You know, to celebrate Dad's life and talk about the future." I knew it wasn't about celebrating anything except their newfound wealth, but I agreed to go. I wanted to see their faces. The restaurant was the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who introduced themselves. Grant ordered a bottle of wine that cost $200. I saw the price on the menu when he wasn't looking. "You seem upset, Elena," Molly said, twirling pasta on her fork. "You should be happy someone finally made that old farm worth something." Grant leaned back in his chair, like a king on a throne. "I did you a favor, actually. You were wasting your life playing nurse. Now you can get a real job and move on." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings and smart business decisions." I lifted my water glass and said nothing. Molly showed off a new diamond tennis bracelet that sparkled under the restaurant lights. "Grant got it for me as a celebration gift," she gushed. Grant smirked at me. "Don't worry, Elena. I'm letting you keep Dad's old truck. Consider it payment for your services." As dinner ended, I made myself ask the question I'd been holding in. "Grant, I need help with moving expenses. Could you spare maybe $5,000 from the sale? Just until I find a new job." I hated the way my voice sounded, small and desperate. But I needed to see how far his cruelty went. Grant pulled out his wallet slowly, making a show of it. He thumbed through several $100 bills before pulling out a single one. Then he dropped it on the floor at my feet. "Get yourself a U-Haul and a roommate, Elena. Life's hard for people who don't plan ahead." Molly giggled behind her wine glass. I bent down, picked up the $100 bill, and folded it carefully into my pocket. "Thank you, Grant," I said quietly. He had no idea he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Inside, something shifted. I stopped being the grieving daughter and became something else. Someone patient, calculated, and determined. Grant thought he'd won. He had no idea the game was just beginning. I smiled at them both and excused myself from the table. Let them celebrate. Let them spend their money. Their fall would be so much sweeter from up high. The next morning, I started packing Dad's things from the farmhouse. I moved slowly through each room, saying goodbye to memories. When I reached his old roll-top desk in the study, I paused. This desk had been Dad's favorite piece of furniture. He'd bought it at an estate sale in 1990 and restored it himself. I remembered him showing me a secret when I was 12 years old. "Elena," he'd said with a wink, "this desk has a trick. Push the second drawer in twice, pull the fourth drawer out once, then press the back corner." I'd forgotten all about it until now. My hands moved automatically, following the sequence Dad had taught me. Click, click, slide. A false panel in the back of the desk popped open. Inside was a leather folder, thick with papers and yellowed with age. I pulled it out carefully and opened it on the desk. The first page was a corporate charter dated March 1994. Rosewood Holdings LLC was printed in bold letters at the top. Below, it was a long legal description of mineral rights separated from surface rights for the Martinez family property. And at the bottom, as the sole managing member upon Howard Martinez's death, was my name, Elena Marie Martinez. I called every lawyer in the county until I found one who specialized in mineral rights. His name was Robert Henderson, and he agreed to see me that afternoon. Mr. Henderson's office smelled like old books and coffee. He was a man in his 70s with sharp eyes and steady hands. I watched him read through the Rosewood Holdings documents for nearly an hour. Finally, he looked up at me over his reading glasses. "Your father was a very smart man, Elena," he said slowly. "In the early 90s, there was an oil boom in this region. A lot of farmers sold their land for quick cash, only to watch the buyers make millions from mineral extraction. Your father saw what was happening and decided to protect himself differently." He pointed to a section of the documents. In 1994, he legally severed the mineral rights from the surface deed. He transferred all subsurface rights into this LLC and named you as the sole beneficiary. When your brother-in-law sold the farm, he only sold the surface. The house, the barn, the fields, the trees, all surface level. But everything below ground, from 1 inch down to the center of the earth, belongs to you through Rosewood Holdings. I stared at Mr. Henderson in shock. "So Grant doesn't actually own the minerals?" "Correct. He has no legal right to them whatsoever. Can I stop the sale? Mr. Henderson shook his head. You could try, but here's my advice, don't. Not yet. He leaned forward with a look that reminded me of a chess player planning 10 moves ahead. If you challenge the sale now, Grant might find a way to drag you into court, delay everything, and possibly tie this up for years. Let the sale go through. Let the new owners take possession of the surface. Then, when they inevitably try to access the minerals, they'll discover they can't without your permission. In this state, surface owners cannot block mineral owners from extraction. The law is on your side. He smiled coldly. Let Grant think he's won. Let him spend his money. Let him build his castle. Then, when he's at his highest point, the ground will open up beneath him. I left his office with a folder tucked under my arm and a plan forming in my mind. For the first time since Dad died, I felt something other than grief. I felt power. 1 week later, I was in my tiny rental apartment when the local evening news came on. My phone buzzed with a text from a former neighbor. Turn on Channel 7. I grabbed the remote and switched channels. There was Grant, standing on my father's farm wearing a hard hat and a massive grin. Next to him was a man in an expensive suit identified as Marcus Webb, CEO of TechMine Industries. We're thrilled to announce a groundbreaking partnership, Marcus Webb was saying into a microphone. Mr. Sullivan's property sits on top of what our geological surveys suggest is one of the largest lithium deposits in the state. Lithium is the key component in electric vehicle batteries, and demand is skyrocketing. Grant stepped forward, chest puffed out. I always knew this land had potential. My late father-in-law never understood the true value here, but I saw it. This is the future. The reporter asked him how it felt to become a millionaire overnight. Grant laughed. It feels like validation. Some people are meant to work the land. Others are meant to transform it. I'm a transformer. I turned off the television and smiled. Grant had just sold a car without the engine, and he didn't even know it yet. Over the next 2 weeks, I kept track of Grant and Molly through social media and local gossip. They'd moved out of their modest suburban house and into a luxury high-rise downtown. Grant bought a cherry red sports car that he posted pictures of constantly. Molly's Instagram became a stream of designer bags, spa days, and champagne brunches. But the $1 million wouldn't last long with their spending habits. According to Mr. Henderson, who had contacts in the industry, Grant had done something incredibly stupid. He took out what's called a bridge loan, Henderson explained over the phone. Essentially, he borrowed $5 million from a private equity firm using his future mining royalties as collateral. The interest rate is 15%. But he doesn't own the minerals, I said.
Exactly.
He signed a contract promising something he has no legal right to deliver. The moment TechMine Industries tries to start extraction and discovers they can't access the lithium without your approval, that loan becomes toxic. What happens then? The equity firm will demand immediate repayment. If he can't pay, they'll sue him for fraud. Grant had built his entire empire on a foundation of sand, and I was about to kick it out from under him. 3 weeks after the sale, my phone rang. It was Molly calling from what sounded like a party. Music thumped in the background, and I could hear people laughing. Elena! Oh my God! You won't believe where we are. She was slightly drunk, her words running together. Grant rented a villa in Cabo for the weekend. There's a private chef and everything. This is the life, sis. This is how we should have always lived. I stayed silent, letting her ramble. You know, Grant was saying he might set up a little trust fund for you. Like maybe 50,000 or something. But only if you apologize for being so difficult about moving out. He says you made him feel bad. I gripped the phone tighter. I'm sure you'll both get exactly what you deserve, Molly. She giggled. That's the spirit. Anyway, I have to go. There's a yacht party tonight. Love you, bye. She hung up before I could respond. I set the phone down and took a deep breath. My sister had become someone I didn't recognize anymore. Money had transformed her into someone shallow and cruel. Or maybe it had just revealed who she'd always been underneath. Either way, I felt nothing for her anymore except pity. It took 6 weeks for TechMine Industries to complete their site preparations. They brought in drilling equipment, set up temporary offices, and hired a full crew. The local news did another story about the economic boom coming to our small county. Grant appeared in that story too, talking about job creation and progress. But then everything stopped. Mr. Henderson called me on a Tuesday morning. "It's happening," he said. TechMine's legal department just filed their notice of commencement with the county. That's when they do their final title review. They've discovered Rosewood Holdings. What does that mean? It means their entire operation just hit a brick wall. They can't extract minerals they don't have rights to. Their contract with Grant is worthless. I'd expect a phone call soon. He was right. 2 hours later, my phone rang from an unknown number. It was Marcus Webb himself, CEO of TechMine Industries. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Ms. Martinez, I need to speak with you about a rather urgent legal matter concerning mineral rights on the former Martinez property." I smiled. "Of course, Mr. Webb. I'm happy to discuss Rosewood Holdings with you anytime." "You know about Rosewood Holdings?" "I own Rosewood Holdings. My father established it in 1994. There was a long silence. Then, "I see. Ms. Martinez, would you be available to meet with our legal team tomorrow?" Grant called me that same evening. His number flashed on my screen, and I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Elena." His voice was high-pitched, panicked. "What the hell is Rosewood Holdings?" "TechMine is saying there's a problem with the mineral rights." I spoke calmly, enjoying every second of his distress. Rosewood Holdings is a limited liability company Dad created in 1994. It holds all the subsurface mineral rights to the farm. "What? That's impossible. I sold the whole property." "No, Grant. You sold the surface. The top layer. The dirt, the grass, the buildings. But everything underneath from 1 inch down belongs to me." I could hear him breathing heavily. "This is a joke. This is some kind of mistake." "It's not a mistake. Dad separated the rights 30 years ago. You would have known that if you'd done proper due diligence instead of forging a power of attorney." He went silent. I just told him I knew about the forgery. "Elena, listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice dropping into a threatening tone. "You need to sign over those rights to me right now. The mine needs to start operations or TechMine is going to sue me." "That sounds like a personal problem, Grant. I will destroy you. I'll tie you up in court for years." "Try it. While you're at it, I'll hand the forged POA over to the district attorney. Elder abuse and fraud carries serious prison time in this state." Grant demanded to meet me in person. Against Mr. Henderson's advice, I agreed. We met at a busy coffee shop in the middle of town. I wanted witnesses to whatever happened next. Grant looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his face was pale and drawn. He'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I sat down across from him with my black coffee. He pushed a stack of papers toward me immediately. "Just sign this," he said desperately. "It's a disclaimer of interest. You sign away your claim to the minerals, and I'll give you $50,000. Right now. Cash." I didn't even look at the papers. "No. Elena, you don't understand. TechMine froze my advance payments. The bank is asking questions about my bridge loan. If this deal doesn't go through, I'll lose everything." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Then, I guess you shouldn't have forged Dad's signature on that power of attorney, should you?" His face turned purple. Veins stood out on his forehead. "You can't prove that." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken of Dad's medical records next to the POA document. His doctor said he couldn't hold a pen. "You forced a dying man to scribble something, or you traced it yourself. Either way, it's fraud." Grant slammed his fist on the table, making other customers turn and stare. "We're family," he shouted. "You're supposed to help family." I laughed. It came out cold and sharp. "Family? You dropped a $100 bill on the floor and told me to get a roommate. You called me a glorified maid. You tried to steal my inheritance while my father was still warm in the ground. I'll sue you for everything. Go ahead. I'll countersue for the attempted theft of mineral rights, and I'll file criminal charges for the forged POA. We can both spend the next 5 years in court." Or you can walk away and accept that you lost. His hands were shaking. Please, he whispered. Elena, please. I've already spent most of the money. If this falls through, they'll take my house, my car, everything. Molly will leave me. I stood up and gathered my things. You made your choices, Grant. Now live with them. As I walked away, he called after me. You'll regret this. I'll make sure you regret this. Everyone in the coffee shop was staring at him. I kept walking and didn't look back. The scared, desperate sister he'd bullied at the funeral was gone. In her place was someone who understood that justice isn't revenge, it's balance. Within 48 hours, the legal avalanche started. TechMine Industries filed a lawsuit against Grant for misrepresentation and fraud. They wanted their $1 million signing bonus returned, plus damages. The private equity firm that had given him the bridge loan called it in immediately. They filed a separate lawsuit demanding repayment of the full $5 million plus interest and penalties. Grant tried to countersue TechMine, claiming they had failed to do proper due diligence. The judge threw it out in preliminary hearings. Mr. Henderson explained it to me simply. Grant represented that he owned something he didn't own. That's fraud. The fact that TechMine should have checked more carefully doesn't absolve him of lying. The local news picked up the story. Suddenly, Grant went from being the town's success story to its biggest scandal. Reporters camped outside his luxury apartment building. His social media accounts went silent. Molly stopped posting pictures of designer bags and champagne. Instead, she posted vague quotes about staying strong and weathering storms. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. But then I remembered the $100 bill on the floor, and the feeling passed. Because the mineral rights dispute made the property toxic, TechMine backed out of the purchase entirely. They argued that the sale contract was void because Grant had sold them property he didn't fully own. The bank that had financed the original purchase agreed. They foreclosed on the farm to recoup their losses. A foreclosure auction was scheduled for 6 weeks later. Grant and Molly would lose everything they'd bought with the borrowed money, the apartment, the car, all of it. Mr. Henderson called me the day the foreclosure notice was posted. The farm is going to auction, Elena. If you want it back, now's your chance. How much will I need? Hard to say. The property is contaminated legally. Most developers won't touch it. I'd estimate it'll go for somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. I don't have that kind of money. Mr. Henderson chuckled. Actually, you do. I've been negotiating with a different mining company, Green Tech Solutions. They're interested in ethical, sustainable lithium extraction. They're willing to offer you a $2 million signing bonus for a mineral lease. With your approval, that money could be in your account by next week. I sat down slowly. $2 million? That's just the signing bonus. The royalties from actual extraction will be substantially more. You'll be a wealthy woman, Elena. The foreclosure auction was held on a cold morning in October. I stood in the county courthouse lobby, wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a cashier's check for $300,000, more than enough to cover any realistic bid. Grant and Molly were there too, sitting in the back row of the auction room. Molly was crying quietly. Grant stared straight ahead with dead eyes. The auctioneer started the bidding at $50,000. A few local farmers bid it up to $90,000. Then silence. Going once at $90,000, the auctioneer called. I raised my bidding card. $150,000. The room turned to look at me. Grant's head snapped up and recognition flooded his face. Elena, he whispered. The auctioneer continued. I have $150. Do I hear $160? Silence. Going once. Going twice. Sold to bidder number 47 for $150,000. I walked to the front and handed over my cashier's check. The clerk processed the paperwork and handed me the deed. I held it in my hands, surface and mineral rights, reunited at last. The farm was mine again. Completely and legally mine. I turned and walked past Grant and Molly without saying a word. I was unlocking my car when Molly ran up behind me. Her mascara was running, and her designer clothes looked wrinkled and worn. Elena, please, she gasped. Please, you have to help us. The bank took everything. Grant might actually go to jail for fraud. We have nowhere to live. I turned to face her. For a moment, I saw my little sister from childhood, the girl who used to share ice cream with me on hot summer days, who cried when our cat died, who held my hand during thunderstorms. But then I remembered her laughing at the restaurant, showing off her diamond bracelet while I was homeless. "Molly, you knew about the forged power of attorney," I said quietly. "You were there when Grant did it. You're just as guilty as he is." Her face crumpled. "I didn't know what to do. He's my husband, and Dad was your father. You chose money over family. Now you get to live with that choice. You're really going to let us lose everything? We're sisters." I opened my car door. "You're right. We're sisters." And when I needed $5,000 to find an apartment, Grant gave me a $100 bill and told me to find a roommate. "Tell me, Molly, what would you have done in my position?" She had no answer. I got in my car and drove away. I moved back into the farmhouse on a sunny November morning. The place was a mess. TechMine had torn up parts of the land for their test drilling, and the house itself needed serious repairs. But it was mine, and I never felt richer. I used part of the green tech signing bonus to hire contractors. Within 3 months, the farmhouse looked better than it had in 20 years. New roof, fresh paint, restored hardwood floors. I replanted Mom's garden and fixed the irrigation system Dad had built by hand. I hired a small crew to help run the farm sustainably while Green Tech prepared for lithium extraction using environmentally responsible methods. They would drill deep underground with minimal surface disruption, and I'd earn royalties on every pound of lithium they extracted. Mr. Henderson estimated the deposits would generate between $20 and $40 million over the next decade. I set up a trust in my father's name to fund agricultural scholarships for students who wanted to learn sustainable farming. Every year, 3 students would receive full college tuition. Dad would have loved that. I also set up a small fund to help elderly farmers with end-of-life care. No one should have to navigate that alone like I did. Grant called me 12 times in the first month after I moved back. I never answered. He left voicemails that progressed from angry to desperate to quietly broken. The last one came on Christmas Eve. His voice was hollow. "Elena, I know you're never going to forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know something." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "I was jealous of you. My whole life, I've tried to prove I'm smart and successful. But you never needed to prove anything. You just quietly became everything I pretended to be. When I saw the farm, I saw one last chance to be the big winner. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you and to your father. I don't expect you to care, but I needed to say it." He hung up. I deleted the voicemail, but his words stayed with me. Grant was going to prison. The district attorney had filed charges for elder abuse and fraud. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence and would serve 3 years. Molly had divorced him and moved to another state. She sent me one email apologizing, but I never responded. It's been a year since Dad died. I'm sitting on the porch of the farmhouse, watching the sun rise over the east field. The apple trees Mom planted are blooming, filling the air with the sweet smell of spring. Dad's old recliner is inside by the window, exactly where it always was. Sometimes I sit in it and imagine I can still hear his voice telling me stories about the land. The lithium extraction is going smoothly. Green Tech is paying me quarterly royalties that are far more than I ever dreamed. But I don't live extravagantly. I drive the same old truck Dad left me. I wear simple clothes. I spend my money on things that matter: the scholarship fund, the farm, the community. Last week, a reporter from the county newspaper called. She wanted to do a story about the woman who outsmarted a con man and saved her family farm. I politely declined. This isn't about revenge or triumph. It's about justice and legacy. It's about honoring the man who built something with his bare hands and had the wisdom to protect it for his daughter. I learned something through all of this. Wealth isn't about how much money you have. It's about knowing what's truly valuable and being willing to fight for it. I'm in the garden now, my hands deep in the soil, planting tomatoes. This is the same spot where Mom taught me to garden when I was 6 years old. Back then, everything seemed simple: plant seeds, water them, watch them grow. Life got more complicated as I got older, but this basic truth remained. If you take care of something, it takes care of you. Dad understood that. He took care of this land, and in return, it provided for our family. When he knew he was getting sick, he made sure the land would take care of me too. That's what the Rosewood Holdings LLC was really about, not revenge on Grant, not even wealth. It was a father's final gift to his daughter, a way to make sure I'd be okay when he was gone. I wish he could see the farm now. The fields are green again, the barn is repaired, and the house is full of light and warmth. Sometimes I swear I can feel him here, standing beside me in the garden, proud of what I've become. I'm not the scared, grieving daughter who stood at his grave a year ago. I'm someone stronger now, someone who learned that kindness isn't weakness and that quiet strength can move mountains. My phone is on the porch railing, and I see Grant's number flash across the screen. He calls sometimes from prison. I never answer, but I never block him either. Letting the phone ring is my way of saying, I've moved on, but I haven't forgotten. The sun is high now, warming my shoulders as I work. Somewhere in the distance, I hear the sound of Green Tech's drilling equipment, a low, steady hum that means my future is being built, one careful extraction at a time. Tonight, I'll sit on this porch and watch the stars come out over land that's been in my family for almost 40 years. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and do it all again, tend the garden, check on the farm operations, maybe drive into town for coffee. It's a simple life, but it's mine. Grant wanted wealth and status. He wanted people to see him as successful and important. He got his wish for a few brief weeks, and then it all came crashing down because it was built on lies. I wanted something different. I wanted home. I wanted peace. I wanted to honor my father's memory. And sitting here now, with soil under my fingernails and the smell of apple blossoms in the air, I have everything I ever truly needed. The farm is saved. Dad's legacy is secure. And I am finally, truly at peace.